Good morning, everybody. We're 55 minutes away from launching your beautiful faces into the weekend with a smorgasbord of sports betting and DFS knowledge. Welcome to the Sweat presented by DraftKings. Alongside Jesse Cofield, I am Emerson Lancia. What do we have coming up in the next 55 minutes?
Yeah, so which NBA teams still care and are not in the tanking Olympics right now? Draft needs for the AFC West, Masters live bets. We're going to get into that. But we start with baseball and the Tampa Bay Rays.
Right.
Who will not stop winning, will not stop streaking. And actually, you're looking at right now the longest MLB win streaks to open the regular season since 1995.
That's right.
Yep. 2023 Tampa Bay Rays here, 6-0 entering the series with Oakland.
That's right. Hey, Gary and Thorne, DraftKings contributor and RotoWire's Eric Halterman. The Rays will not stop winning. They won't stop streaking. It's been smooth sailing for them so far. It'll likely continue tonight as well as they open a series with the lowly A's. So, Gare Bear, what's more likely for Tampa Bay so far? Is it that they're this good, or is it more of a result of a soft opening schedule?
I think it's more the latter, but I don't want to disparage the Rays. The Rays are quite good. And in fact, the whole Rays infrastructure is set up to beat these types of teams. The Rays are so fundamentally sound. The Rays do everything right. They get the extra base every single time. They move the runner every single time. Their pitching, their bullpen is so solid. This is a team built to win 90 games across 162, and basically you just out-fundamental other teams to death. And frankly, the Nationals and Tigers don't have a lot of fundamentals. They don't have a lot of talent either. That's where the Rays tend to come up short, is when they run into franchises that can spend money and have just sheer better talent. Now, Wander Franco has been fantastic so far this season. People who are smart weren't writing him off. He had a broken hand last season, but obviously if he and Randy Arozarena can live up to their potential, they've got some nice pieces on offense. Their pitching staff is fantastic. It'll be even better when some guys get healthy. But look, Steve Buchanan's not here, so I'll actually say something nice about him.
Yes, I know what you're going to say.
He's been saying this for months. Like a lot of people have. Like the race to 10 wins.
Yes.
The Rays, it was such an obvious bet. This schedule was a cupcake walk. Like again, all credit to the Rays. You have to actually go out and win these games, but the schedule has been set up exceedingly well for Tampa.
And Eric, their 6 consecutive wins by 4 or more runs are the most by any team during its first 6 games in the modern era. So that dates all the way back to 1884. How long can the good times continue rolling here?
Until at least 1884. I think they're going to keep running. I think that the only thing that Gary didn't add, I think I agree with everything he said, is that the Rays as an organization, if you were to predict one organization to have, say, behind the scenes prepared its players better, to just have a plan, not only do they have players who can execute, but the entire Rays MO for years has been, how can we squeeze every little small advantage out of every corner of the game that we can? I think we should have known that the Rays were going to come into this season already feeling comfortable with the new style of baseball. And I think definitely the fact that they're 6-0 rather than just 4-2, 5-1 owes a lot to the fact that they're playing some of the absolute dregs of the league. And if they start, 14-2 or something like that, I wouldn't expect them to continue at that kind of pace, but I definitely think we're going to see a Rays season that's at least as good as the last several. And if this is the year where Wander Franco takes that next step, maybe this is a team that's challenging for top seed in the AL rather than just the normal good playoff team that they've been the past few years.
So 3 against the Athletics. Then it gets a little more difficult, though, Gare Bear, because they'll host the Red Sox for 4 games, and then they'll be
the
up.
Red Sox a good team? Have we decided that?
Well,
this isn't Tuesday, bud. You've got
listen. They're not the A's, okay? That's basically what I mean by that comment. And then they're up in your neck of the woods to face the Blue Jays.
Okay, well, let's get to today's MLB slate.
That sounds
How
like a
about
great
that?
idea,
All
Jesse.
right, we're talking full slate here, fellas. So, Eric, we're going to cover the bases. First base is a DFS pitcher that you want to slot into your lineup. Who is it going to be?
Yeah, it's an interesting slate because there's 3 at the top, and they're the only guys that I really want to even look at even in the middle tier, featuring a couple names that you might normally trust, like Chris Bassett and Jack Flaherty. In that night slate, I don't think I'm trusting them at all. I think I'm going above them. And of those three expensive pitchers, Clayton Kershaw is the one that I would go with because he's the only one with an easy enough matchup. And the other two top starters facing St. Louis and another strong lineup. Kershaw gets a totally winnable matchup here against Arizona. And the thing about Kershaw is the only reason he doesn't go even higher in season-long fantasy leagues is people aren't sure about his durability. But that's not an issue in daily fantasy. He absolutely deserves to be thought of in the same tier as the pitchers who are going in, say, the second and third round of season-long fantasy drafts. As long as Kershaw is pitching like himself, I think no problem, even with his age, treating him as the kind of guy that you would build a lineup around.
All right, Gary, and are you with Eric targeting one of the top 3 priced guys?
Yeah, I think he's got a pretty good perception of this slate so far. I would say Kershaw is by far the number 1 pitcher. I would say that's going to be a pretty consensus take. He's going to be very, very popular. Particularly, we've got some rain in the forecast for this San Diego-Atlanta game. So if suddenly this becomes a 4-game slate, that's going to put even more pressure on Kershaw and more ownership on Kershaw. I would say the only guy towards the bottom that I have even the slightest amount of interest in, and I'm going to weirdly say a lot of nice things about the Nationals today, Mackenzie Gore at least has the potential to be good. Obviously, this game is at Coors Field. He had some terrible starts at Coors Field last year, but he's coming off one of the more promising outings I've seen from him in his young career. He's the only pitcher so far this season to shut down the Atlanta Braves. That is a Herculean task at this point. 5 1/3 innings allowed just 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts in that game, a 13% swinging strike rate. We know Gore can rack up the strikeouts. He has upside in DFS in that capacity. And while this game is in Colorado, the Rockies can't hit, and they also strike out a ton. So there's at least some upside below 7K for Gore. But again, you kind of have to hold your nose and pray that we get a game like we got yesterday at Coors Field and not a game where there's 25 runs.
All right, Gare Bear. So now let's talk dudes who are swinging good wood right now as we hit second base. Your DFS hitter du jour.
I think Shohei Ohtani, and he might be hard to afford if you're paying up for all these pitchers. I think you can get him in there if you, again, hold your nose and use Gore. But I don't know. Chris Bassett might be on washed watch. I mean, that start he made against St. Louis. Granted, the Cardinals are a very good lineup, but Bassett was someone a lot of people had identified as oh, he might struggle with the pitch clock stuff. He's got so many pitches. He's on record talking about how he liked shaking off even 3 or 4 pitches per call just to mess with hitters' timing. You can't do that stuff anymore. He's kind of like the wily veteran using all his tricks, and they just took away half of his trick bag. Oh, and he also lost 2 miles per hour of velocity on his fastball. That's really bad, too. Against left-handed batters in that start against St. Louis. Again, 1 start. They were 7 for 10 with 4 home runs. Bassett gave up 5 barrels in that game. 12 of the 19 batted ball events that he allowed were hard hit, over 95 miles per hour in terms of exit velocity. He didn't have a single strikeout in that game. It's just bad sign, red flag after red flag. It's 1 start. Chris Bassett's been very good for a half decade. I think we have to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But Shohei Ohtani's fantastic, and he's left-handed. I think he's going to be a big issue for Bassett tonight.
All right, cool. Eric, who do you want tonight as your top DFS hitter?
Yeah, I think there's 2 directions to go on this slate. Either you are picking one of the top pitchers, probably Kershaw, and finding someone like Mackenzie Gore, who Gary mentioned, somebody cheaper, and then you could fit in those Angels, probably Ohtani and Mike Trout, beating up on Chris Bassett. The other direction that I'm going to take, if I go with 2 expensive pitchers, is stacking Brewers, and there the most expensive hitter would be Christian Yelich at 4,900. I want everyone I can get against Jack Flaherty after his first start of the year, which is a funny thing to say when that start involves no hits and no runs, but it also involved 7 walks and a loss of 2 ticks of velocity. It was about as discouraging of a start in the opening week as I can remember. And again, no runs, no hits. I'm still making that claim. I think that's how bad it is to see a guy come out with that kind of velocity and just completely no idea of the zone. I want all the Brewers I can get, and I think Christian Yelich at 4,900 is a great price range to have one of your more expensive hitters if you're forced to go with two expensive pitchers, whether that's Patrick Sandoval or Brandon Woodruff alongside Clayton Kershaw.
All right, Eric, so if you do go with two expensive pitchers, you're going to need some serious value somewhere. So where are you finding that on this slate?
Yeah, let's go with just the rest of the Brewers. If I'm picking on Jack Flaherty, let's just get as many of them as I can in there. The two exciting cheap ones both come at the very near the bottom. Bryce Terang, 2,500. Garrett Mitchell, 2,600. Both of those guys have had strong starts to the year. We're thought of as more speed guys, though Garrett Mitchell also has some power and has shown it already, and even Bryce Terang has hit at least one homer early on. I'm going to want as many of these guys as I can. At the very least, I feel like I'm getting a walk out of every single one of my Brewers today, and I think there's a good chance they go off for 8 to 10 runs if Flaherty is forced to leave the game early, and we hit the soft underbelly of the Cardinals bullpen in second inning as early as we could see him today.
All right, Gary, and where are you finding your super value?
So this is kind of basic, but I'm just going to go with some of the Nationals bats at Coors Field. It's interesting that even the DraftKings algorithm, which tends to pump up price rates even like as high as $1.5 thousand when someone plays at Coors Field, even they're pessimistic about this Nationals lineup, which I understand. It's a bad lineup that's been very underwhelming to start this season. But we've already talked about Jack Flaherty and Chris Bassett and sort of the red flags that they've posted so far this season. They might not even be the most worrisome pitcher starting tonight, which is saying something. Jose Urena is going to start this game for the Rockies at Coors. He faced 16 batters in his first start of the season, did not record a strikeout, 4 walks, 4 earned runs. I mean, if we're doing cooked watch, I think he's at the top of the list, and the Rockies really can't do anything about it. They might actually be perfectly fine with sending him out there every 5th day as long as he's healthy. So this could be a situation to take advantage of all season long. I'll single out Dom Smith. He's got the handedness matchup tonight, batting from the left side against the right-handed Urena. Again, he hasn't been great so far this season, but there is underlying power there. We know that from his days back in New York, and he should be batting cleanup at just $3,200 at Coors Field. I'll take a chance on that every time.
We're heading home here on our Covering the Bases segment. Gare Bear, last one for you. We go to the DK Sportsbook. Give me your favorite bet tonight.
I'm going to go with Mackenzie Gore's strikeout prop. It is set at 4.5, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Again, Coors Field is Coors Field. We understand that. It wreaks havoc on pitchers. He might not last that long. However, he just struck out 6 in a game against the Braves, a much better lineup than the Rockies. The Rockies so far this season have the 4th highest strikeout rate in baseball at 27%. No team in baseball has a higher chase rate. No team in baseball has a higher swinging strike rate. They have a 15.2% swinging strike rate as a team. They have 3 regulars who have a strikeout rate above 33.3% so far this season. If Mackenzie Gore can last 4 innings, I think he gets 5 strikeouts in this game, and it's at plus money, plus 110.
All right, Eric, what bet do you like tonight?
Yeah, I'm looking at both starting pitchers who are going against Jack Flaherty and Chris Bassett, the 2 pitchers who I'm worried might just be broken this year. I'm looking at both of them to record a win. Brandon Woodruff, plus 140. Patrick Sandoval, plus 165. I think both of those pitchers are going to last at least 5 innings, and I think they're going to outpitch their potentially cooked counterparts.
All right, good stuff, dudes. Before we get to tonight's NBA slate, Rebecca Lobo joined Golick and Smetty to talk about the women's NCAA final and the hottest or most overblown rivalry in sports, Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese.
The part that unfortunately took the headline was the Angel Reese. And to show you my age, I was just doing our Sorry in Advance podcast with our family. And this whole hand thing is you can't see me. I'm like, what does you can't see me have to do with what the hell is going on with the court? And it was my son Mike who was saying, basically it means you can't guard me. I'm like, okay, someone say you can't. I mean.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Mike?
Yes.
So we're calling the regional championship. I'm out in Seattle, and it is Iowa playing Louisville. And it's the first time Caitlin does this.
Right,
and you know how it is. We roll out to a break with this, and I say on air, I don't know what that means. I had no idea what it meant. I didn't, and so then people are tweeting at me, it means, John Cena, you can't see me. And I said, I still don't understand what that means and what it has to do with basketball. So anyway, you and I are together.
Yeah, and then
I
Mike
love the
was-
layers of confusion happening from like, I don't even know what this is, and then other people being like, I don't know what this is either, but I'm mad. Like,
Yeah,
there's
but
so many
I'm
layers
mad
to it.
she did it, and so I guess just your whole, my quick thought is you either like that stuff, hate that stuff, or you're indifferent. Would I want my kids to do that? Probably not, but I am certainly not going to make that the lead story at all. I'm overseeing youth, so I mean, it doesn't matter enough to me. You, Rebecca, have kids who you are coaching and who are playing, so you are, when you see something, I guess first, what did you think about the whole brouhaha, and then how would you approach that with your kids and coaching them?
Well, it wasn't a brouhaha in the moment. Like, you
No.
know, we called the game, we showed that replay, and that was that. We knew what she was doing because, you know, we had called the game where Caitlin had done it. So there wasn't a brouhaha within the women's basketball world, you know, until it got into social media. So, like, celebrating yourself is not my cup of tea. It's not what I did when I was a player. It's not what I encourage my kids to do. But I don't have a problem, certainly, with anybody doing it, and I never ever would assign anything towards the person because of what they did on the court. And we when we're at the Final Four, get to meet with these teams, get to meet with these players. And Angel Reese is a delight, and she's a smart, thoughtful person. When you're sitting in the meetings talking basketball and her willingness to include her team and talk about her team in an incredibly generous way. So the frustrating thing is when people then assign whatever they are going to assign to an athlete and a person because of some sort of celebration that they've done.
Yeah, Rebecca, this is like an existential question that I've talked to with my other podcast co-host Kate Fagan about too. With so many eyeballs on this game, it almost attracts like the worst aspects of sports media coverage from that we see a lot on like the men's side to the women's side, to have these like incendiary, reactionary like things where they don't know the player, they don't know her story, they don't know that she's felt snubbed by not being on awards list earlier this season, they don't know Caitlin Clark has been doing this celebration before and that she's been, you know, showing up 3-point signal every time she hits a three, that like this is her style of play too. And so it's like I wonder if there's almost like it was so popular that it was almost unavoidable that something really stupid, given the media landscape and social media and everything, like this would happen. I wonder if you have any thoughts at all about that.
Well, it's sometimes people outside of the sport like to hijack the conversation a little bit. And Mike will remember this, you know, for a number of years when UConn was winning championships, the first round of the tournament would come. They were in 1 seed and they would destroy the 16 seed. And the conversation, we'd come in on you know, the second day of the tournament, and the pervasive conversation is UConn bad for women's basketball. And I would get so frustrated because then we would have, you know, these pregame shows or whatever as in studio, and instead of me breaking down this player or that player, I then have to answer the stupid narrative, is UConn bad for women's basketball? And so I think that's what happened here a little bit too. And part of it is great, you know, like if we get Iowa playing against LSU next year, that would be amazing. This will have led to more interest in the game. And whether you like the celebration or don't like the celebration or how it happened, the personal nature of it is what is most offensive. And so if you're going to parachute into the sport and comment on how the women play or comment on the celebrations, whatever, that's fine. But the personal attacks are the part that's troublesome and are the part that, you know, you would almost rather, all right, you can stay outside. We don't need you as a fan if this is what you're gonna bring to the table. Because yes, everybody who is at least partially aware of the sport knew exactly what that interaction was all about, whether you liked it or didn't like it. And I think one of the things that also was getting lost here is the player who it didn't bother was Caitlin Clark.
Yes.
Caitlin Clark said she didn't even see it. She was headed to her handshake line. She didn't care. So, you know, for all the people that are offended on behalf of Caitlin Clark didn't care. So you can choose, and when you're playing pickup, to celebrate how you want. You can choose to have your kids celebrate how they want, but don't go attack a 20-year-old woman in a personal way because you don't like the way she celebrated it in one of the biggest moments of her life.
All right, guys, go check out the full episode from this week. So Mike and Jess also had Notre Dame basketball head coach Micah Shrewsbury on to recap the men's tournament and talk about how the game has changed in recent years. Visit DraftKings YouTube page for video of the episodes, or you can download the audio wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, let's dive into NBA shoot-around now when Nick Fryer and Jeff Pratt, two of my favorite DraftKings contributors, will share their favorite DFS and sportsbook plays ahead of tonight's 11-game slate. We have tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday, the final 3 days left in the NBA regular season here, guys. 7 teams have these 3 days left to figure out what the order of the 5th through 11 teams in the Western Conference will be. Final play-in position here, Mr. Fryer, is going to come down to the Thunder and Mavs. OKC is in front by half a game after it ended its 3-game losing streak last night against the Jazz. So, Dallas's season on the line right now. Who do you think locks up that final spot in the West?
Look, my heart wants to say the Oklahoma City Thunder, and my brain also wants to say the Oklahoma City Thunder, because they're in position right now where they're in the driver's seat. And you look at what's going on with the Grizzlies too. Tonight they're going up against the Bucks. They're trying to lock up the 2 seed against the Kings right now. They shouldn't have reason to go and play on Sunday. Not that the Thunder necessarily need to take care of business, because the Mavs, right, they have the Bulls and then they have the Spurs. Right now, it's looking really good for the Thunder, and also I really would like to see Kyrie Irving not make the postseason, and I want to see how Luka Doncic responds. But back to the Grizzlies too, because they play a part in this. No Giannis, no Drew Holiday, no Middleton, no Brooks tonight. So the Grizzlies should be able to lock up the 2 seed tonight and then just coast on Sunday.
Okay, because I was going to say, Pratt, Thunder had that interesting last game of the season ahead of them against the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Nick said. Assuming Memphis does lock it up tonight with the 2 seed, they have no reason to play their guys on Sunday. And if that happens, Shea's just going to go for 40, and this one's going to be done.
All right, obviously still a lot of things to be decided, only a few games to go, but it's kind of tough to keep track of who's going to be motivated this time of year.
As they were just saying.
Exactly, which teams and players can we actually rely on when we're filling out our DFS lineup. So Jeff, who are we looking to?
Sure. So I've got the full breakdown here. If you guys
me,
want to,
baby,
it's gonna be complicated. It's gonna be complicated. So just looking at it for tonight's slate, the West is much more wide open. You can probably rely on the Grizzlies to try to win their game to clinch the 2 seed, as we were just talking about. The Warriors should try to win to avoid the play-in. The Lakers will be trying to win in case Golden State loses, and then the Pelicans will try to win for play-in positioning too. They're trying to stay in that 8-9. First play-in matchup. The East is much more solidified. A lot of teams are locked into playoff seeds, but the Nets and Heat should try to win because they're technically still battling for the 6th seed. Atlanta and Toronto will also compete because they're fighting for a spot in that 8-9 play-in matchup. So I just threw a ton at you guys, but the players on those teams should see a somewhat full workload tonight.
All right, who's going to see a good workload tonight, Nick? What do you think?
Well, I mean, when we look at tonight specifically, I think Jeff laid it out pretty well. But if we're talking about specific picks, there is a Knicks guy, too, who I think has incentive to go and try and push it a little bit that I would like. Do you want to get into our top plays for tonight, or are we trying to do a whole breakdown again?
Well, fine. Let's look specifically at tonight.
Take us there, Nick, because especially over on the Eastern Conference, technically one playoff spot position left up for grabs here. I don't know if the Nets should really be all that worried about dropping from 6 to 7. The Heat put an absolute beat down on the 76ers last night, but then you had the Nets who put a beat down on the Heat just a couple weeks ago, right, in South Beach. It's wild. What would you do tonight then? Who is your top play tonight?
So my top play is not on any of the teams that are trying to vie for a play-in spot or trying to get a better seeding and anything like that. Although, again, Jeff, I thought Jeff hit it on it really well, breaking everything down, because there are plenty of teams that still have reason to try and win, even if they're in a tough spot. But I like Emmanuel Quickly a lot tonight, and his $9K price tag against the Pelicans should push some people away. It actually, I know when Jeff and I were talking before the show, he was a little bit surprised by that number, but he's coming off a stupid 66.5 DK fantasy point performance against the Pacers, who, by the way, he'll see again on Sunday. He's got over 60 DK fantasy points in 2 of the last 6, 44 and 47.25 in 2 other games during that stretch as well. No Jalen Brunson, no Julius Randle. Possibly no RJ Barrett, who is questionable tonight. I know the Pelicans have done well against opposing point guards, but quickly had, 30 DK fantasy points, a little over that. He averaged 1.13 DK fantasy points per minute against them last time. Only played 27 minutes, took 10 shots. He's been playing 37 plus for the last 6 games, and he's getting a lot more shots, getting a lot more trips to the free throw line. All this, I'm burying the lead here. He's playing to try and be sixth man of the year right now. It should go to Malcolm Brogdon. And I know you can say, oh, maybe being a little Celtics homer there. It should go to Malcolm Brogdon. But Emmanuel Quickley is not going to stop right now. And I don't think his coach is going to go and try and reel him in necessarily either before the postseason, because this is important to the kid.
Pratt, what do you think? Your top play tonight, Jimmy Butler's Heat, I'm sorry, play-in tournament or not, going to be one of the most dangerous NBA postseason teams, dude. I'd be nervous.
Maybe. They haven't looked like the Heat of last year for the entire season. But playoff Jimmy Butler is absolutely a thing, Emerson.
And you know that. You know that as a Celtics fan.
I know that as a Celtics fan. I watched it live in TD Garden in Game 6 when they had a chance to clinch last year, and Jimmy dropped like 45. So I've seen it. I'm not going to disregard that. I'm not going to talk about the Heat today, though. I think the options are pretty slim in terms of high-priced players who we know will see their full workload. But there's still a couple of guys who could put up strong DFS performances. I'm rolling with Steph Curry at 10.5K. The Warriors still need to win to ensure that they avoid the play-in tournament, which means we're going to see a lot of Curry tonight. And I feel comfortable paying up for him, even though Sacramento is likely sitting guys, because at the end of the day, we're talking about the Warriors on the road here. This is one of the worst road teams we have ever seen. It doesn't matter who they're playing. They will likely not blow their opponents out. So Curry's coming off a strong 54 fantasy point performance against the Thunder. I expect him to keep it rolling in not a must-win, but an important game for Golden State to win.
Yeah, Jeff, given the situation here with a lot of stars resting and stuff, I'd imagine there's a ton of value on the board.
There is, and you guys know I had to get at least one more Celtics pick in before the regular season ended. But Boston has nothing to play for tonight. They're locked into the 2 seed. The only reason you see guys like Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown on the floor tonight is to keep them in their rhythm. I would be shocked if they play more than 15, 20 minutes max tonight. And then you've got Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, Marcus Smart, and Peyton Pritchard, all questionable. I definitely expect Brogdon and Smart to sit. White could play a little bit just because he's played in all 80 games for the Celtics this season, so they want him to keep that streak alive. It's important to guys who play the entirety of a season. But assuming all of those guys either sit or see minimal playing time, that puts Boston's reserves in a fantastic spot to outproduce their price tag. And the first name that comes to mind is Sam Hauser. He's been in and out of the rotation, but when he plays, he puts up a ton of shots. He shoots it really efficiently from behind the arc. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play 30 to 35 minutes tonight and walk away with some big numbers. And then another really cheap guy to keep your eye on is J.D. Davison, Boston's two-way rookie. The Celtics will need someone to run their offense, and he could be the only available point guard tonight. So at 3,300, I think there's some value there too.
All right, Nick, where are you going?
Yeah, I know we're talking a lot about teams that have reason to play, but then, of course, there are some teams that don't have reason to play, and then they're resting guys. So there are some reserves that should get more run in those games that I'm looking to. We're looking at that Atlanta game over on Washington side. I do like Montrezl Harrell at 4.5K. I also like Jay Crowder for the Bucks at 4.8K in Memphis, and he's probably my number one guy tonight. Jay Crowder, again, no Giannis, no Drew Holiday, no Middleton or Brook Lopez. We should see Crowder slide back into the starting lineup. He was there against Washington earlier in the week. In that game, played 24 minutes, logged 33.75 DK fantasy points, 11 shots in that game, 9 rebounds. So I expect him to go hard even in this game still, because he should get more minutes too. So now he's going to have more volume. Montrezl Harrell, similar kind of thing, doesn't get a lot of minutes, but Embiid is out tonight. Atlanta doesn't handle bigs well. This is kind of garbage minutes for him in some capacity, so I could see him trying to go and do a little bit extra tonight, get some points. When he plays enough minutes, he does rack up the points. I'd also keep an eye on the Suns injury report too. They played yesterday. Meaningless game for them tonight going up against the Lakers, so I would imagine some value guys will be good options tonight there as well.
Yeah, which is why as of right now, the Lakers are 10-point favorites, Nick. You mentioned how challenging it can be in DFS, but just as challenging on the sportsbook side with these teams that have reasons to play, teams that don't have reasons to play. So nail down a good bet for us tonight on the DK Sportsbook.
Yeah, it is a tough one. I mean, we all know the teams that we should be looking to tonight. Teams that are trying to get better position, trying to get into the postseason. One team that's trying to get in a better position but has a lot up in the air still are the Toronto Raptors. When I was writing up the best bets article for DK Nation today, they were at plus 120. Now they're operating between minus 105 or right at even money. But I do like them going up against the Celtics. Of course, Jeff has highlighted quite a bit of what's going on with the Celtics. So we all know what's going on there. But when you look at the Raptors side of things, they don't take their foot off the gas in general. They like to run their guys into the ground. I know they're right near the postseason, but trying to get one less game in the playing tournament, at least have a chance at that. And however they view the Celtics or the Bucks being the tougher matchup, I'm sure they just want to try and win, not have to play 2 games in the playing tournament, because if they don't get past the Hawks, that's going to be the case. They're in a tough spot because the Hawks kind of are in control of their own destiny, but winning tonight for the Raptors is still important.
Pratt, what's your favorite bet on the board tonight?
So I think Toronto is in a great spot. I completely agree with Nick. And I like to bend the rules slightly here. I don't have a singular bet, but we spent so much time talking about who needs to win, who doesn't have anything to play for, that I think an opportunity to parlay a few of these teams in clear money line spots has presented itself. So out of the teams that we've mentioned so far, it doesn't make a lot of sense to take Atlanta or Brooklyn on the money line because they're such heavy favorites. But if you wanted to take Memphis, who's looking to clinch the 2 seed, the Warriors, who are looking to avoid the play-in, and the Pelicans, who are still definitely fighting for positioning with Minnesota and the Lakers, and then you get plus 107, plus 110 when parlaying all 3 of those teams together. You get them at plus money. I think that's a very logical bet to make, considering the spots all 3 of them are in.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to check in on the Masters after this. Spoiler alert, Brooks is looking like vintage Brooks.
I know, dude.
Oh, no!
Come on, Xander.
But first, UFC 287 is going down this weekend in Miami. Anik and Florian were joined by legendary trainer Ray Longo to break down the main event, which is a championship rematch between Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya, and I mean, this is a big one that's going down. A lot of implications.
Spicy.
So I want to talk to you about this main event because when these two fought last year with a Madison Square Garden backdrop, I don't know if it was reflective in the pay-per-view numbers, but I just cannot remember fan excitement on that level, right? I just think fans were so excited, given the kickboxing history, to see these guys in MMA. And now, given the way that fight played out with a Miami backdrop now, I just think it's the perfect setting for this rematch. And I want to know what you think about all of that and what you think ultimately is going to happen this weekend at Miami-Dade Arena.
Yeah, look, man, this is crazy stuff. But I think, look, I give Izzy all the credit in the world, man. Coming back, I mean, you know, he's lost 3 times to the guy, won in MMA, twice in kickboxing. I think he should have taken a little more time off. You know, I think it's hard to come back that short of time because it wasn't like he didn't take any damage. This guy hits like a freight train, man. So what was the fight, 4 months ago? Maybe something like that?
November.
Yeah, so that's a pretty quick turnaround. But, you know, remember in the first fight he had, you know, Alex rocked in the first round too. So I don't know, man. It's like whoever gets there first is going to win. But I think it's hard. We saw it with Usman and Leon Edwards. It's not easy to come back and win those fights. So I'm going to have to go with Alex on this one. And he certainly has the power. He looks like a complete monster. He looks like he's dialed in constantly, but he's a scary dude.
Right about that. Oh,
yeah.
man.
I mean, if Izzy doesn't, it's so risky to stand up with him because his power it's beyond normal power. You know, I mean, that guy's got bricks in his hand, and that's a great quality to have. Obviously, the wrestling looked horrendous with the jiu-jitsu, so I think it's easier to try to tighten that up in 4 months than it is to get your chin back to normal. So I don't know. It's a risky move, but we'll see. I think Alex takes it again. I think he's got this guy's number, and sometimes that's all it takes.
All right, good stuff, guys. Check out the full episode with John Anik and Kenny Florian as they dive more into UFC 287 from Miami and hand out bets for each card. So you can get that video on the DK YouTube page, or you can download it wherever you get your audio.
All right, let's bring in Jeff Ulrich now because he's been putting up a fight on the Masters betting boards, baby. Jeff, let's talk some Masters cut watch here. And I am absolutely frustrated that Brooks Koepka has decided to I don't know, turn back the clock here. He hasn't won a tournament wearing pants in more than 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's a fact. He wears shorts now on Liv. Dude has a 3-stroke lead, Jeff Ulrich. He's plus 240 to win this whole damn thing right now. He has to be atop your main takeaways from round 1 yesterday. I don't think any of us expected this out of him.
I mean, I was expecting a good performance from Brooks Koepka, but I would also be lying if I said that I thought he'd be 10 under and leading the Masters by 3 shots at this point in the second round. But what have we seen from Brooks Koepka throughout his career? When he's healthy and focused, it's just like he's a major championship hunter. I mean, this is where he's done it his entire career. We shouldn't be that overly shocked. He won last week on Liv. He started to play better. He's clearly focused after kind of the documentary on Netflix came out, and it made him look like he was sort of losing his mind. And I think he was losing his mind because this is how focused Brooks Koepka is on getting major championships. The whole Liv thing, it is what it is, and it's probably been overblown a little bit. These guys are still really good golfers. Brooks Koepka is still a player who dominated major championships for over 2 years. So it is shocking from the fact that we had so little information on what was going on with these guys in Livs, because as you're saying, they're playing 54 hole events. They're playing in shorts. Not that shorts had anything to do with it, but they're playing at a different level of competition than the PGA players. It was hard to predict. But Brooks Koepka is still Brooks Koepka. He is him, so to speak. So it's a little bit shocking he's come out and done this well. But of any player in the field from Liv, this is the player I would have picked to have a big week.
I'm just going to say Jesse's guy, Jon Rahm, too. His opening 65, Jeff, even more impressive when you consider it was the lowest score to par for any golfer in Masters freaking history who began his round with a double bogey or worse. Like, unbelievable he was able to overcome that because we know between the ears what a firecracker he can be.
He can be, but that does speak to Jon Rahm's maturity and evolution of the last couple of seasons. I mean, I think early in his career, the double bogey probably would have knocked Jon Rahm out for the week. That's not what we've seen from Jon Rahm over the last 2 seasons. I mean, this is a player who won the U.S. Open by birdieing his last 2 holes, sinking a few putts, and just keeping himself in contention. He grinded down that U.S. Open win. We've seen him grind down other wins too, where he's gotten frustrated and then he just bounces right back. And I mean, the firepower that Jon Rahm possesses, I don't even know if Brooks Koepka can match it. So that's something to keep an eye on. Certainly a great start for him. In a lot of ways, I don't think you could have scripted a better start by him falling back and then coming out and still shooting 7 under, because how much confidence can you take from that? I'll be pretty shocked if Jon Rahm doesn't put up another solid round today and at least get himself close to the lead that Brooks Koepka is putting up.
Yeah, I mean, Rahm has 4 top 10 finishes in 6 appearances at the Masters.
He's never really, it's funny because he's never really been in contention at Augusta. Like, he's had good rounds and he's had good Sundays. But outside of maybe one little blip, and I think it was 2018, 2019 maybe, Jon Rahm really hasn't been there on Sunday where it's like he's been tied for the lead with a few holes to go. So it is going to be a different environment for him, but certainly a great start.
Yeah, I will also like to add real quick, my best friend, Diet Coke loving Sepp Straka, he opened up with a double as well, ripped off 5 straight birdies on the back 9, finished the day 2 under, so shout out to him, Jeff.
Yeah,
friend of the program.
It's a very solid tournament. He's 2 under.
Yeah.
He's, Sepp Straka's qualified for all 4 majors.
Yep.
So it is a player, you're going to have to keep an eye on as the year progresses.
All right, Jeff, my dude Jon Rahm up there. Obviously, Brooks, Victor Hovland. So, like, which of the guys at or near the top do you think are going to stay there? And does the weather have a big effect on this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look, the weather's going to get really poor over the next 2 days. So I think what you're going to see is the players who are, say, the players that are in contention after day 2, within 4 or 5 shots of lead, I think it's going to be a huge advantage. We don't typically see a ton of movement from the leaders. Players will drop off. Certainly players will move up, but it is a bit of a front runners tournament. With the weather turning bad, it's probably going to be more than that, more like that this season as well. So, it is something to take note of. If a player gets out and he catches up today and he's in a good spot after round 2, he's probably going to be in a good spot to be there on Sunday. I think this bodes very well for Jason Day. He putted extraordinarily well yesterday. 11-foot par save to end his round. His around the green game looks great. What Jason Day is doing on the course right now reminds me a little bit of what Tiger did in 2019. He just grinded away. He kept himself inside the lead. And then on Sunday, he just waited for everybody else to fall off. With some poor weather coming in, I could see Jason Day do a very similar thing that Tiger did in 2019. I do think that the poor weather probably helps someone like Jason Day. I also think it helps Jordan Spieth, who's making a bit of a run early in his round. He's at 5 under. Just really, really solid around the green games. And as the weather gets poor, it's just going to become more and more important to save par, to really manage the course well.
Jeff, a turbulent first round for Tiger as well, who was playing and is playing today in his pairing with Xander and Victor. So those two were absolutely torching the course. While Tiger's limp was obvious, he was up and down. What are the chances he makes it to the weekend? What was that, a 1 over or 2 over in his opening round yesterday?
Yeah, it was a 2 over. I'm just checking to see where Tiger's at. Oh yeah, he hasn't teed off yet. I just wanted to make sure. But yeah, no, I mean a 2 over par for Tiger Woods. Look, I mean, the expectations were not high for us. So, the fact is, Tiger Woods is still inside the cut line. He's 12 shots off the lead, but, the cut has moved down to T50 now at +2. So Tiger is there. I mean, this is what we expect from Tiger. I expect Tiger to grind extremely hard to make the cut today. I don't think that even, we talked to Jason Sobel about this. I think even Tiger Woods, maybe for like the first time in his career, had really lowered his expectations for the Masters this season, where he was just happy to be there. He doesn't have many chances left. He knows his game isn't as sharp as it can be because he's had one competitive tournament, this entire season. But I think what you're going to see from Tiger is a major grind to make this cut. Even if he gets behind early in the round, I don't think you're going to see any give up. So the conditions still aren't that bad. The really bad stuff is Saturday and Sunday. I think Tiger can do it. I really do. I mean, if you're asking me to predict, I think he's going to make the cut because this is what Tiger Woods does at majors and especially at the Masters. It's tough to see him. I don't know how many birdies he had in his round yesterday. He only had like 1 or 2, but I expect a little bit of a better effort, and I think he's really going to try his hardest at the very least.
That would tie the Masters record of 23 straight cuts made if he.
And don't think that Tiger Woods doesn't know that either.
Oh yeah,
right? Like
for sure.
Something that he probably knows. So
for sure.
Yeah, I expect a very, very grindy effort from Tiger Woods today.
All right. Well, which live bets do you like, Jeff? Taking a look at the board.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. So, I talked about the poor weather coming in. We can look down the board. Some guys obviously making some moves today. Jason Day is there. Obviously, he's plus 900, but certainly like the way that he's looked, to date in his round. It's not a bad number. Again, I'm not sure how far you necessarily want to go down the board, but there are guys that haven't teed off. I know Emerson's favorite, Xander Schauffele, plus 2,200. He's started the round 3 shots back. He's obviously 6 shots back now. So, you're going to need some of these players, obviously, to pick up the pace. I think my favorite, probably just for in-play betting, there's 2 players. Shane Lowry at plus 4,500. Going to be very good for the conditions coming in on the weekend. He's at -4, had a really solid round. Certainly, if we get any movement back from Brooks Koepka in this round, Lowry could get up to the point where he's 3 or 4 back. I just think that number at plus 4,500, you compare him to Schauffele, they're at the same starting number here. Lowry is double the price. And then even going further back, Patrick Cantlay at plus 6,500. It's a little bit of a tall task, but Patrick Cantlay was one of the leaders in strokes gained tee to green yesterday. He just didn't putt well. If he can put up a solid round today, his tee to green play is certainly can keep him in, and much like Day, could just keep him hanging around the lead on the weekend. So Cantlay at plus 7,000 now, it looks like in the live odds. Shane Lowry at plus 4,500. Really like that Lowry number, to be honest. He only started around 3 back. He's obviously more back now, but in a good position to stay close, and the conditions are going to be in his favor on the weekend.
100% chance of rain tomorrow night. We're looking at winds 12 to 18 miles per hour, 25 mile per hour gusts. Jeff, you like Tony Finau entering this tournament as the winner. Currently plus 5,000 to take this thing and catch Brooks. Who right now would you bet to win this thing as we stand now and knowing the weather that's coming?
Yeah, I mean, again, for a pure value proposition, just depends. If you're looking to just take some shots on guys down the board, I would be looking at Lowry, and I would probably be looking at a guy like Patrick Cantlay as well to potentially make some moves, get themselves in contention. But if I'm sticking with the top of the board, I would be looking at Spieth and Day. I think Jason Day is, as I mentioned off the top, he's looking extremely balanced. This is a player we've seen progress throughout the season. He had Scotty Scheffler down three holes with 7 after the first 7 in the match play. That's a confidence boost right there for Jason Day. He hasn't won yet, but the around the green game, the putting, it's back to the 2016 levels with Jason Day. And I really do think that the poor weather favors him more. You can throw out the bad back and all this, but Jason Day has the around the green game. He's got the mentality where, he's going to take his time out there. He's not going to do anything crazy. That is where I would go at the top of the board. I really would. The odds don't look that big, but I really like the way he's looked. And if he can just stay close to Brooks, I think the weather potentially will just bring everyone back and give him a real shot on the weekend.
I mean, he just birdied 9, so he's at 7 under. Unfortunately, that's now 4 strokes back of Brooks Koepka, who is sitting at 11 under par after birdieing the par 5 13th.
Wow. Thank you, Jeff.
Damn!
Thank
Brooks,
you.
collapse,
Can't wait to sweat it
collapse.
out this weekend. Jeff, please stick around, though, because we are going to be talking AFC West draft needs coming up next to close the show.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at salaries for the Bristol Dirt Race, whose salary jumped up this week. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., $5,700 up to $8,900, just like when NASCAR goes road racing and the road racers get a price spike. The guys with dirt track backgrounds, their price goes up, but Stenhouse is more of a team owner in the dirt series these days. Chase Briscoe, $7,800 up to $10,200, like Stenhouse, dirt track background, but mainly background. He is not active. He did almost win this race last season, and he does have an Eldora dirt race win. Tyler Reddick, $9,000 up to $10,700, a dirt track legend, but he is not a regular dirt tracking racer anymore. He did almost win this race last season before Chase Briscoe wrecked him in the final turn. Whose salary dropped this week? Kevin Harvick, $10,800 down to $8,300. How seriously will he take this race? Last season, he said that running dirt at Bristol was ridiculous. Eric Almirola, $7,600 down to $6,100. He wrecked in this race last season because it's the Bristol dirt race. It's too muddy, then it gets too dusty. There is this windshield debate. It's a little bit of a mess. Martin Truex Jr., $9,900 down to $8,700. He's not a dirt track racer, but this is not really a dirt track race. With almost no experience on dirt, he led nearly every lap and won the first ever Truck Series race on the Bristol dirt track. Favorite play of the week, Kyle Larson, $10,900, over 100 dirt track wins. They are marquee wins from late models to sprint cars to the Truck Series. And oh, by the way, he has the fastest Cup Series car this season. Michael McDowell, $6,400. He's a road racer, not a dirt racer. He's a racer. He was very good in the first 2 Bristol dirt races, and he's been very fast this season. All right, guys, check out DK Nation for your DFS information and needs. If you have NASCAR questions, find me on Twitter at Race for the Prize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
It's Football Friday here on The Sweat. Jesse and Emerson welcoming in Julian Edlow. Jeff Ulrich is still with us. Guys, we are talking team draft needs for the AFC West, and we are starting with the Kings, the Chiefs. All right, Mahomes, he put up an MVP season, but he did not have a wide receiver reach 1,000 yards, okay? So even if they re-sign Juju, Mecole Hardman, do we think receiver is a position that the Chiefs have got to add to this offseason? What do you think, Jeff?
Juju is not going to be there.
Yeah, he's going to, fair.
That's true. Juju's gone.
He's
I do think the Chiefs will probably, this is one of the positions they'll be looking at in the first round. It does make a lot of sense. They do need to address the O-line as well. Lost some players to free agency there. And look, what we've seen from the Chiefs is they obviously smartly make a very concerted effort to protect Patrick Mahomes and make the O-line an issue. But if you're looking in the first round, I think Jalen Hyatt makes a very lot of sense for the Kansas City Chiefs to potentially target. I mean, this is a player who's, he's not huge. He's around 6 feet. He's around 180 pounds, but he's also a burner. He's, around 4'40" guy. And again, he's got a lot of elusiveness in the open field. I think it's just in terms of scheme fit, I think he would fit well with what Andy Reid wants to do. He could be a bit of a Mecole Hardman replacement. He's obviously not going to be a Tyreek Hill guy, but with the group that the Kansas City Chiefs have at wide receiver, I expect them to be going after a Jalen Hyatt type player at some point in the draft, and it could definitely happen in the first round.
All right, Jules, obviously Juju going to the Patriots, signing that 3-year deal, so what do we think?
Yeah, the Chiefs are thinner than they've ever been at wide receiver. I think they believe in MVS, Kadarius Toney, particularly, and Sky Moore, who they invested in, in the draft as well. But they're going to need more depth, and obviously things change when you have Kelsey in there, who is going to be the wide receiver one no matter what, essentially. But whether it's addressed in the first round or later rounds, like Jeff said, that's going to be a position that Kansas City addresses in this draft. But you see there, odds-wise, the favorite for Kansas City to go with the first pick is the defensive line. I think getting some additions to that pass rush, which they also lost pieces from, but which was a key part of their Super Bowl run, makes a lot of sense. So when you have Mahomes and you have Kelsey and a solid rebuilt offensive line, it can mask a lot of your needs at receiver. So maybe it is a place that they address later in the draft and try and go after defense and get a little bit more dominant on the defensive side of the ball early, because they have that luxury of Mahomes to just, the offense is going to be good no matter what. You know that. So they might invest later, but at some point, yeah, Kansas City is going to take a wide receiver in this draft. It's just a question of if they help the defense out first.
All right, Jules, let's talk Chargers here, because if big staff changes, if all those changes happening with this franchise are any indication, Brandon Staley's back is against the wall here entering 2023. So what do they need?
Yeah, an elite quarterback is there. They are ready to win now. They have decent receivers around him. They just need the other pieces, and they have studs on defense. They just kind of need to fill in the cracks, it feels like, if you're the Chargers. So I could see them going a lot of different ways here. I could see them investing in the offensive line to help protect Herbert. I could see them investing in the back end of that defense, even though they have big names there. Because that pass rush has so many elite names already on it. And they've made high investments in the draft in linebackers in recent years too. So you look at the Chargers, they feel more like a best player on the board type of team. It's probably not a high-level wide receiver, and it's obviously not going to be a quarterback. But I think that the Chargers are a team that, when they're up on the clock, they can really go with, this is the guy at the best position that we need right now, and it could be any one of 4 or 5 positions.
All right, Jeff, sounds like the Chargers don't have a huge list of needs entering the offseason here, man. What do you expect them to do at the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the Chargers don't have a ton of weaknesses, but at the same time, like, I think they're a bigger favorite to take an offensive player in the first round than even the Chiefs. Like, I would almost be shocked if the Chargers didn't take a tight end or a wide receiver. Justin Herbert was one of the worst in terms of just ADOT, like throwing downfield last season. That's a little ridiculous considering the skills that Justin Herbert has. And they have a new OC in, and they have 2 wide receivers who aren't really that young anymore. Mike Williams is also injury prone. Keenan Allen, around 32 years of age. When those 2 guys were off the field too, like Herbert's ADOT went down even lower. I think they're going to go either tight end or wide receiver in round 1. Jordan Addison makes a lot of sense. Didn't have the 40 time that people were expecting, but I mean, you look at his game tape. I mean, a player who can play inside, outside. I think he would fit very well just in that wide receiver room. Could be used as more of a downfield target, opening up things for Keenan Allen when he's healthy. Could certainly just be used inside as well. So I think Addison is a target. I think Michael Mayer as a tight end makes a lot of sense. Dalton Kincaid, but the Chargers are in a bit of a luxury spot where they can kind of, as Julian said, take the best player. I just think that they considering the division they're in, considering their quarterback, it makes the most sense for them to start building more around Justin Herbert, especially with a new OC.
All right, Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. So have a lot more needs this year than they did in his first offseason. Yep. Derek Carr's gone. Struggling offensive line. A defense that ranked near the bottom of the league last year. I mean, Jeff, where to begin?
Yeah, this is I mean, we go from the penthouse to the outhouse here, so to speak. The team that has no weaknesses to the team that needs everything. I could see that the Raiders. I mean, look, the Raiders do need everything. Now, honestly, the Raiders' best strategy might be to trade back and just get as many draft picks as possible. They need to address the O-line, certainly. They need to address the secondary, probably more than anything. They allowed an average 90.8 passer rating against, a 68% completion rate to opposing quarterbacks. And Christian Gonzalez is certainly someone that people have been mocking to the Raiders consistently. But look, there's the big elephant in the room too, like the quarterback position. They're sitting there at 7th. Are they going to try and move up for Anthony Richardson? The Raiders could do a whole lot of things here. Like I said, it's the Raiders, so they're probably going to do the least efficient thing, which is just take a quarterback and then try and fix everything else with like patches. But they need help everywhere. They could even go guard with Paris Johnson in round 1. So the Raiders' best strategy would be, again, to try and accumulate picks, maybe try and go after Gonzalez with a later pick or something like that. But if I had a feeling as to what they're going to do in the first round, I do think that there's a chance they'll probably try and take one of the two quarterbacks that are going to be left when they pick.
Jules, do you agree the secondary is their biggest pain point, or?
I mean, we saw how that defense looked last year. So the secondary is a huge need, and there are some good cornerbacks at the top of this draft. I do agree with Jeff. Like, they could benefit from kind of doing what the Bears did on a smaller scale. Obviously, they don't have the top pick, and moving back to get more good players in their lineup because they need it. But when you look at them, I'll say the two numbers I think are off. I think the plus 200 on it to be a quarterback seems a little high to me. I'm not convinced that they're going to go quarterback. I feel like a Josh McDaniels has his two guys. He's got Patriots there now in Stidham and Hoyer playing quarterback. Like, he feels he can get by, I feel like, with one of those guys in a bridge year and kind of build up the rest of the team. I don't think it's going to be wide receiver because they just got Devontae Adams and they're decent there. They did get rid of Darren Waller, though, and tight end is sitting there at plus 5,000. And as Jeff mentioned with the Chargers, who are a good candidate to take a tight end, there could be 3 of those guys go in the first round here. So it's not going to happen at 7, but if they were to move back and get multiple picks, like we discussed a little bit, maybe that becomes an option in the teens or 20s. But this is wide open, and in terms of biggest team need, it's absolutely defense, and it starts on the secondary because they were just getting killed there last year.
Denver needs a lot. Got to go quick here, guys. They could use some more picks. They could use some more cap space. First year at the helm here, Jules, for Sean Payton. What does he do at the draft?
Yeah, I'm probably looking at either one of the lines here. I mean, you have Russell Wilson, you have pass catchers, you have a solid defense. I think you're either looking to go O-line and get more protection for Russell Wilson in a year that he has to improve, or you look at the D-line and try and replace some of those pass rushers that you've lost in the last couple of seasons.
Jeff, quickly, Denver's needs.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing other than the O-line, I mean, they did address it in free agency a bit. They could take a running back later in the draft, Sean Tucker, maybe is a person to note there just because of the injury to Javonte Williams. They obviously did sign Samaje Perine, but I could see them beefing up at RB sometime later in the draft as well.
All right, good stuff, guys. That is a show. Madden kicks off at noon. The slate is at 5 p.m., and we will be back Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern to talk about the Masters. See you then.
Toodaloo.